Well, it's a very good morning from him, and of course, it's a very good morning from me. Welcome to my live stream, my Mortgage Insights. Welcome to this lovely hot day. That is quite like humid day here in the UK. It's not nice when it gets all humid. We had thunderstorms last night. I went swimming to the outdoor pool last night. They pulled us all out because of lightning. How dare they? Well, it's probably better than being struck by lightning in the middle of a swimming pool. I don't think you'd survive that one actually. So anyway, welcome to our live stream. A couple of great topics for you on taxation and types of advice. So good CPD for you as well, just to keep you up to date. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying this lovely warm weather that we're having. And maybe you're thinking about holidays or all sorts of things, I don't know. Or maybe you're just looking at the mortgage market and think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because it's all changed, isn't it, at the moment? It's all go with these interest rates and economy and I don't know, recession probabilities or whatever. But let's get on to some topic for you, because that's why you're listening to this podcast or watching this live stream. Okay, let's go on air. Let's get things done properly, shall we? Now, my first topic for you, I want to take a look at personal allowances for the next tax year. We've been updating all our materials over the last couple of months for the new tax year, and we update as we go along because it's the right thing to do, isn't it? Rather than wait the whole year before you update the syllabus. It's just daft, really. So I wanted to give you some stuff on personal allowances, and then I want to take a look at types of advice, which it's kind of like lots of things going on there. So we've got that coming up for you shortly. So let's take a look at the subject of personal allowances. So welcome to Personal Allowances 23-24. Now, as you know, of course, we're talking about taxation here and income tax and other types of taxation. Everybody has a little bit of tax-free pay, and that's known as a personal allowance. Everyone's entitled to it. So, it's a great thing. And I'm going to show you the numbers in a second. But unfortunately, people do lose the personal allowance if they start to earn mega bucks, which, is fair enough, really. You can't argue it. Let's look at some numbers, shall we, first of all? So let's head over to my slides then. Now, here we have a tax sheet. As you know, of course, all the numbers are contained in the tax sheets. Let's zoom in here. Now, as you can see from the figures there, the personal allowance for this tax year is 12,570. It's the same as last year, and it's going to be the same like forever anyway, I think, because they're doing fiscal drag, aren't they? I'm not worried about the married or the marriage allowance, and I'm not worried about the blind person's allowance. They get extra allowance, as you can see. So they're the two important ones. But it's the personal allowance that really matters. As you can see there, everyone's entitled to £12,570 tax-free pay. How cool is that? You can't argue with that, can you? And for people on minimum wage, normal wages, average wages, it does represent quite a large chunk of your income where you don't have to pay any tax at all. And of course, you do start to lose it, though, the more you start to earn. And I don't know if you can see down at the bottom there, it says personal allowance reduced by £1 for every £2 of adjusted net income over £100,000. Basically, what that means is if somebody earns more than 100 grand, they're going to lose some of their personal allowance. And that's what I want to share with you right now. So I've got an example to share with you how a high earner can start to lose their personal allowance and not have any tax-free pay. Besides the politics of it all, it is also very useful for pensions planning, and we'll come on to that at the end. I know mortgage advisors don't give pension advice, but you might want to become a financial advisor to be able to do this. So I got a fictitious customer. Her name is Janine, and Janine has a salary of £110,000. So let's take a look at that visually, shall we? £110,000. And this one's entitled Losing Your Personal Allowance. It's a bit like losing your religion. Was it an REM number, wasn't it? Losing your personal allowance. Now, Janine earns £110,000, so a jolly good salary. Well done, Janine. Now, Janine has this salary, so let's put that into the bucket. Remember my bucket system that I have. Now, Janine has a personal allowance. And in most circumstances, we said it's £12,570. So she would get that amount of her income tax-free, and the rest of it would then be applied at basic rate and high rate. So she'd have quite a big tax bill. Unfortunately, she does earn more than £100,000. So she exceeds the 100,000 limit by £10,000. That's important. Now remember, for every £2 that somebody earns over that £100,000 limit, you lose £1 of your personal allowance. So it's pretty much 50%, isn't it? So this calculation is easy. We reduce her personal allowance by 5,000. It was exceeded by 10, 50% of that. So we reduce her personal allowance by £5,000. So if we look at it graphically then, if we look at the numbers, we've just, reduced her personal allowance. She didn't get as much. And obviously, if she earned a lot more, she'd lose her personal allowance completely. But we're just doing this as an example. So what you need to do now is add the tax. Now, she's still got to pay basic rate tax. Um, so obviously more. There's 37.7 at 20%. She's still got to pay quite a lot of basic rate tax, but she's also now got to pay more high rate tax as well. So 64,000 at 40%, she's got to pay another 25 grand in high rate tax. Now, the important thing about that is if she hadn't lost her personal allowance or a little bit of her, she would have paid more high rate tax. Another 2 grand in tax she would have been liable to pay, which, in anyone's book is not good, is it? Because she earns that money. So she's kind of got caught in this tax trap, really. Now, what can you do as a financial advisor? Well, there's a number of things. She could take some kind of salary sacrifice if her employer would allow her, maybe to sacrifice some of the money, put it into a company pension scheme or some other kind of benefits. But quite simply, she could just pay money into a personal pension or a SIP, her own personal contribution, and that would effectively reduce her income because it did talk about on that tax sheet net adjusted income. So you can reduce your salary effectively with a personal pension contribution, and therefore she would get her personal allowance back. So, a couple of grand in a pension would certainly be worthwhile. She'd get a tax relief anyway, but she's going to get her personal allowance back too. So she's going to save herself a couple of grand in high rate tax. So it's certainly something to do. So that's personal allowances then for the current tax year. I hope you found that useful. Great. Okay. So just an update for you. As you know, we put these videos into our boot camp so that people who are studying the exams, the CMAT 1, the RO1s, that sort of thing, can just watch the video, for a couple of minutes and update themselves rather than trawl through an old textbook. They can just watch the video. It's all in proper order, all structured. So we're quite pleased about that, and it goes down really well with our customers. So let's move on then to my next topic for you, and that's a bit of a compliance one, really, and that's types of advice. So I'm going to head over to the whiteboard for this one because I want to. Let's pop over here, shall we, to the whiteboard, which I've started. So let's take a look at the subject of types of advice. Now, you might be a mortgage advisor, you might be a financial advisor, you will have some kind of permission under your belts, which means that you can give advice on certain product areas. Mortgages, equity release, financial advice, etc. And I'm not worried about that. That's something separate. Now, once you become an advisor, and we're talking here about financial advisors, you are then working for a firm or part of a network where you are either independent or whole of market or restricted. And that's where I want to go with this topic, types of advice. So effectively, just get my whiteboard going. There's 2 types of advisor, really. The first one is the regulated, there you go, regulated advisor. And she, let's put details in there. There you go, let's put her in there. She is a regulated advisor and she's authorized to give full advice. So she has permissions around financial advice. They call that CF30. Sounds like a robot, doesn't it? I love that. A form phrase, CF30. She's a financial advisor and she can give advice on financials advice matters. Now, she might also be a mortgage advisor as well, equity release advisor, but that's entirely up to her. But as far as the regulator is concerned, she's a CF30 permissioned advisor. You do also have introducers, so it's probably worth putting an introducer in here as well for you. Now, an introducer, there you go, let's put him in there, shall we? He works for a firm where he's authorized to introduce business to her. He can't give advice. He can only give guidance to a potential customer, give a few ideas, but he is essentially an introducer and he will introduce business to an authorized financial advisor. Now, you might be one of those for financial advice. You might be a mortgage advisor and you introduce people to a financial advisor. So for that need, if you like, you can only give guidance. So you can talk about stuff like pensions and things, don't keep away from it, but you can't give advice. It's a big difference there, isn't it, when it comes to it? Now, when you start to give advice as a regulated advisor, that's when you're either focused, simplified, or basic. Now we're getting a little bit of technicalities, but hey, we like a bit of technicality, don't we? So what I'm going to do, and as you know, I use Maslow's pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which looks at the needs of a human, basic needs, survival needs, growth needs, self-esteem needs. It's how people evolve. And we use this thing called Pepsi, there you go, which is designed, Pepsi-O actually, designed to show the needs of a customer. So you've got protection, earnings protection, pension planning, savings, investments, and other including things like mortgages, estate planning, that sort of thing. And that's how people's needs work. Now, there's 3 types of advice that you might be authorized to give. The first one is what we call focused. Let's put that in there for you. Focused advice. Focused advice. Now, focused advice is where the client decides the advice that they want. So the client, for example, might decide they want advice around protection. So that's the client. Let's put that in there for you. Decides. And that's quite important there. So you might be an independent advisor, and your client might only want advice around a certain need area, and therefore you're going to give some focused advice around that for the client. That makes sense as well. Again, a little bit dangerous. You can be careful that you're not ignoring other major needs if the client has them. So you need to look at that. But the client has made that decision. Now the other one, which is quite similar, I'll do this in colour over here for you, is what we call simplified. There you go. Now, this is in the news recently. I don't know if you've read about it. Simplified advice. Now, simplified advice is where the firm decides what advice it's going to give. So, for example, the firm might decide to give advice around investments only. That's the firm's decision. There you go. Let's put that in there for you. Which makes absolute sense if you think about it. There's a lot of IFA wealth managers who just focus on investment planning. That's all they do. They do it very well. Some only focus on pension planning. So although they can refer on, that's all they do. And that's a great business model. It works really well for them. And why not? Nothing wrong with that at all. The other one, which crops up occasionally, is called basic advice. Basic advice. Now, basic advice is where the advisor is going to give advice on very basic products. They used to call these, it could be any area, of course, but on basic products, which they used to call stakeholder products. I don't know if you read that in your book anywhere. The stakeholder suite of very, very old now. That goes back, 20 odd years now, into Gordon Brown's time as Chancellor of the Exchequer. You're talking about Iraq wartime in 2003, 4, 5, where you had some very, products which were just removed of all their bells and whistles, and they're very basic products on ISAs you had and pensions and stuff like that. That just doesn't happen anymore. That's just in the textbook. It's not real, is it? So that's the 3 types of advice then that you would give. Pretty much textbooky stuff. That most financial advisors tend to operate in a simplified way if they want to just give advice in a certain area. But of course, if they're giving advice in every area, it's full advice when it comes to. Okay, let's move on from there. Let's get into the next section then. Give a different colour now to keep it separate. We'll take a look at the other aspect about giving advice, which is what I call traditional advice. Now, traditional financial advice comes in two guises: independent or restricted. Independent, which is known as the IFA, of course. She is a regulator advisor. She gives advice from the whole marketplace. That's the whole point, isn't it? She's an independent advisor. She acts as the agent of the client, so she acts on behalf of the client, and she gives independent advice across all the different insurance companies, all the investment houses, all the areas that she gives advice. In the mortgage world, we call it whole of market, but that's slightly different because that's the mortgage side of things as well. We're talking here about IFAs, remember. The second one is known as a restricted advisor. Now, a restricted advisor, by the name suggests there, is an advisor who can only give advice on one company's products. Independent can have a panel, but the panel must be proven as being good. But a restricted advisor gives advice on one firm's product. Sometimes a couple, but it's usually just the one. SJP, a great example of a good restricted advice company. And there's plenty of examples of IFAs out there on the marketplace as well. And that's easy to understand, isn't it, really? But this can mix in with that, by the way. You might, for example, have a regulated advisor whose firm only focuses on investments, who's completely independent. So you can have all of that as well. Now, let's look at some of the future of this now, because it's all changing now. I call this future. So let's get a different color pen here. I've got a future. Now, in the future, and this is affecting a lot of IFAs now. In the future, I think you've got a couple of types of advice, haven't you? You've got robo advice. There you go. Robo advice. I don't think the word's correct. Robots, but there you go. Robo advice is where a artificial intelligence engine gives advice. Simple as that. So it could be some kind of algorithm built into a decision tree system, or it can be intelligent language model that actually is able to give advice according to your situation. Maybe read a fact find and give advice accordingly. It's all out there, and it's going to get more and more. It's going to be a lot cheaper. And the algorithm side of it tends to deal with passive investment funds. In other words, they're not actively managed, they're just passive investments based upon a FTSE index or an ETF or something. The AI is exciting though, because that involves intelligence that can read your situation and give you advice accordingly. Clever stuff. It's not going to go away. And in the future, if somebody doesn't want to have a person to talk to, then they can do it via computer, artificial intelligence. It's there. It will affect your business as the younger generation gets older. The younger generation inheriting trillions of pounds in the next couple of years from the boomers. Therefore, they will probably do a lot of it that way themselves. There is, though, hybrid. That's another one that's important. Hybrid advice. Now, again, as the name suggests, that's half and half. So it's artificial intelligence doing a lot of the legwork, and a human being able to interpret what the AI is saying to the client. These are for people who don't trust the robot completely. They want a human to oversee it. They want a human to talk to them. The human, she, financial advisor, she will use AI to do a lot of the donkey work, a lot of the fact finding and extracting information and working out the best product advice, going into the sourcing systems to get the right advice, etc. The platforms that will produce information for her. She can then interpret that into words that the client understands. She will build the rapport, the connection with the client. That, by the way, my friends, is the future of advising. Knock me down if you want to. It'll never change, not in my industry. Knock me down if you want to, but it will. And that's something to think about moving forward. It's a lot cheaper, of course, because her time is less, because she's using AI to do a lot of the hard work. The robo advice is the cheapest possible, and that will affect a lot of these people. So that's the future. One final thing for you, and you probably read about in the press recently, and we'll get a red pen for this one. I'll highlight this one. Is the FCA are on this at the moment because they're a bit worried that people aren't buying financial advice because, one, they don't want to pay the fees, and number two, the 28 odd thousand IFAs haven't got time for people on lower incomes. That's what it is. So these people aren't getting advice, but they're inheriting money. So they're bringing in the new system of simplified. They're bringing this in now. They're calling it simplified advice. And what they're doing is a number of things. They're making it a limited product range. So they're making it so that you can give advice on a limited product range, kind of like stakeholder products, but bog standard stuff, really, less risk. But also the fact finding is a lot quicker. It is, by the way, the full area of needs, this new simplified advice thing. I'll put the new in there for you so you can see what I'm talking about here. So there is proper fact finding going on, but it's a shorter, quicker fact find. But more importantly, the advisor, she needs less qualifications to do it, and that's interesting. So maybe the advisor won't need a level 4 or chartered kind of status to do this. She might be maybe level 3. There might be a new exam coming in for that. We don't know yet. It's details. They're marketing it to the big banks and the big sales forces who would want to do this because they can do it en masse. Obviously, they can scale it up, but it's very cheaper because you don't need so many supervisors. It's not much risk, you see. That's the whole point behind it. So keep your eye on the news for that, because it may come in. It may not, may die a death, like a lot of these things, because at the end of the day, the financial advisor world likes to keep things as they are, because that's the model they like. So quite a lot going on there with types of advice, but you'll get questions in exams on that one. So hopefully a bit of an update for you. Hope that's been of use. Bye. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that. That's great, wasn't it? Bit of an update for you. quite a visual one. So it shows how the world's changing. I'm convinced, the world is changing with AI and robo advice. We're using ChatGPT already. We're not using it to write stuff and paste it on the internet. That's just palaver, isn't it? That's awful. You can read articles written by. Well, we're using ChatGPT now to help us to create information, to give us start on things. It creates articles. It can write information. It can write textbooks if you want to. So all knowledge workers like you and I are using these AI engines, these large language models, to help us in our work, and you should be doing the same too. But finding out ways in which you can use it properly. Anyway, enough of that. We're away next Monday because we are, and because I'm on Ollibob's down in Cornwall, should be nice. So don't expect a live stream. I'm not going to do it from the beach. Well, good, I suppose. But people do, don't they? They post on LinkedIn, "Hi, look at me. I'm having a great time on the beach. Haven't I just had a great year?" I'm not going to do that. That's just ridiculous. Isn't it? Always my downtime with my family. You're going to get all of that now, aren't you, moving forward? But so that's what I'm looking forward to. When we get back, I've got another explainer webinar on the Saturday telling you about our route to financial advisor. Our next cohort, by the way, starts on the 3rd of July now. We're inviting 8 people in. We've got a couple already booked into our guidance through your DIP FA. If you want to become a financial advisor, and time, you've got the time because things are quieting down a bit. What are we now? June, July. So by early next year, you could have the full financial advice qualification, and that will allow you to become a financial advisor, which doesn't get affected by the housing market. That's interesting, isn't it? Enough of that. I think all has been said and done. Less probably said than done. This probably happens, doesn't it? I'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time. Have fun, enjoy the weather, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And have fun and all those good things, because that's what it's all about, isn't it, at the end of the day? So see you in a couple of weeks.